It's really hard to believe that it's already been 10 years with Minutes to Midnight from Linkin Park. I could still remember when I first listened to this album. It was previous to me going to college. I was looking at colleges, staying up in a hotel room, and just putting this album on and just completely engrossing myself into it. And I was a fan of Linkin Park before that. This was around the time, again, a little bit before I hit what, again, I refer to as my musical renaissance, but it was around the time when I was still listening to angry music for the sake of the anger, whatever. That's just what I was attracted to. And, you know, I definitely loved Meteora. That was probably one of my favorite albums around that time. Hybrid Theory was fantastic. Reanimation, I was a little bit disappointed because I thought it was a new album. Those were just my expectations. I like the remixes overall. I think they definitely did a good job of keeping us, interested in their music. But my issue started to crop up with Meteora in the fact that it kind of sounded too similar to Hybrid Theory in the sense of the song structures were all the same. The songs themselves kind of flowed the same way, and some of them kind of felt similar in a lot of ways. Again, it was still one of my favorite albums. I still love that album even today, but it was something that they were kind of started to lose as their luster, I would say. And then they came out with Minutes to Midnight, and it kind of got mixed receptions. Now, personally, I first listened to it, I wasn't too thrilled to hear it. I mean, I was expecting something a little bit more angry, a little bit more aggressive, and that's not what you really get with Minutes to Midnight. I would call this album a bit of a reboot for the band because they stripped away a lot of what we were used to for them. And I mean, this was coming 4 years after Meteora, so none of us had any idea what to expect. I mean, they had released, they kept this with releasing the singles, but if you already knew and listened to the album, you knew those singles already, so it wasn't like you had anything fresh to keep you interested in them over the last 4 years till this album came out. And then when it hit and it's something just entirely different, it's easy to kind of feel like you're let down a bit by this. It doesn't necessarily have to sound the same to be good though, and I've, over the years, definitely grown on this album a lot as I realized what it was they were actually trying to do with this. So they really stripped away a lot of the electronic work, and it just doesn't feel as busy as their previous albums. I mean, it's there. The electronics are definitely there throughout this album, but they don't have as much of a starring role as they did in the previous albums. There aren't as many like heavy breakdowns on here or anything like that. I mean, you still get some more traditional songs like the first actual song on the album, Given Up. That song really feels like more traditional Linkin Park, but at the same time it feels more stripped down. It feels raw. It feels like it was recorded live versus, manipulated in the studio. The first single they released, What I've Done, probably is the most traditional Linkin Park from what we knew at that point. It sounds like it could have been off of Meteora. The song No More Sorrow is another one, but it's also taken in a different direction, especially with the guitars there. And that's one of the things. The guitars definitely feel a lot more diverse on this album overall. But then you get the more slower and kind of more emotional songs that really kind of carry this album through, like Leave Out All the Rest, Shadow of the Day, Valentine's Day, and In Pieces. Those are all examples of the songs that really kind of demonstrate what they can do. And while I would definitely say they're still a pop band doing rock music, there's more depth to it on this album. And that was, again, one of my issues with Meteora was that it kind of at times felt a bit shallow, but Minutes to Midnight I think really kind of stepped things up for them. But because of that, because they kind of changed things a bit, and because it's not as aggressive, and because of everything, it's just more simplistic in its delivery, but it works so well. I think a lot of people kind of had mixed reactions to it for that reason. But you know what? I think it's definitely time to revisit this album, and I'm not just saying that because the unfortunate death of Chester Bennington. I really think that this album is worth listening to and has been worth listening to this entire time. If you've skipped over this, or if you still have mixed feelings about this, just give it another chance. I really think this is probably one of the best albums that they have done. They really carried over what they were good at and just expanded upon that, but at the same time they stripped everything away and they gave us Linkin Park as a band. They didn't give us Linkin Park as the nu metal group that we are used to. It feels more like a straightforward rock album or alternative rock album, and Again, I think that's why a lot of people balked at it, but I really think it's worth going back to, especially after 10 years. Thank you so much for watching the 10-year review of Linkin Park's Minutes to Midnight. Make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Has this album grown on you? Did you like it when it came out? Do you like it now? What are your feelings on this album? Let me know. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more.